He was born a prince, trained to conquer kingdoms, but his greatest battle was against himself. In the grand kingdom of Aryavat, where wisdom and valor had long been cherished, there lived a young prince named Arjun. Though his name carried the echoes of great warriors, his heart was in turmoil. Despite his royal upbringing, victories on the battlefield, and admiration from his people, he found himself increasingly troubled by doubt, anger, and fear. Every setback shattered his confidence, every insult wounded his pride, and every loss made him question his destiny. One fateful evening, amidst the golden glow of the palace torches, Arjun faced his greatest humiliation. His most trusted friend and advisor betrayed him in court, twisting words and fabricating lies that led to his disgrace before the royal assembly. The sting of deception broke something within him. He felt lost, powerless, despite his wealth and strength, despite the respect he commanded. It was then that he recalled the stories of a revered rishi, a sage known to possess the wisdom of Sanatan Dharma, the eternal path. With the first rays of dawn breaking over the kingdom, Arjun set out alone, leaving behind his crown, his armor, and the burden of his doubts. His journey led him deep into the heart of a sacred forest, where time seemed to stand still. Under the vast shade of an ancient banyan tree, the rishi sat in deep meditation, his presence exuding a stillness that contrasted with the storm inside Arjun. "O wise one," Arjun said, kneeling before him, "I have conquered enemies on the battlefield, yet I cannot conquer my mind. I wish to become unshakable, beyond the reach of suffering. Can you show me the way?" The rishi opened his eyes and smiled. "If you seek true strength, you must walk the path of Sanatan Dharma. There are 10 great principles that will transform you, but words alone will not teach you. You must live these truths." Thus began Arjun's greatest journey, not across lands, but within himself. The rishi led Arjun to a nearby village where a dispute had arisen. A poor man stood accused of theft, surrounded by angry villagers demanding his punishment. "The truth is often hidden beneath noise," the rishi whispered. "Will you find it?" Arjun observed the accused man's trembling hands and desperate eyes. Instead of accepting the crowd's judgment, he began asking questions. Who had seen the theft? Where was the evidence? Slowly, through careful investigation, he uncovered the real thief, a wealthy merchant who had bribed officials to shift the blame. The villagers gasped, ashamed of their hasty judgment. The innocent man was freed. "Truth is like the sun," the rishi said. "It may be covered by clouds, but it never ceases to shine. Stand by it and you will never be weak." Arjun realized that much of his suffering came from fearing or avoiding the truth. From that day, he vowed never to be blinded by emotions or deception. As they traveled onward, they arrived at a town where soldiers were punishing a man for speaking against the king. Arjun's hand instinctively reached for his sword. "Is violence always the answer?" the rishi asked. "But how else can justice be served?" Arjun argued. The rishi smiled and pointed to a mighty elephant calmly obeying a frail mahout. "True strength is not in harming others, but in mastering oneself. A king who rules by fear is weak. A leader who controls his emotions is truly powerful." Arjun hesitated, then stepped forward. "Let me speak to the king," he declared. The soldier stopped, recognizing the prince. Arjun pleaded the man's case, arguing that true leadership allows space for criticism, for only through listening to the people can a ruler grow stronger. When the king heard Arjun's words, he relented, pardoning the man, but warning him to speak with responsibility. The people watched in awe, for they had expected a battle, Yet the prince had won without drawing his sword. That night, by the riverside, the rishi told him the story of a great warrior who, after winning many battles, chose to renounce his sword, realizing that true conquest was not over enemies but over his own rage. Arjun, who had long believed in solving problems with might, began to see restraint as a greater power. The next morning, they entered a bustling marketplace where traders overcharged and merchants hoarded gold. Do you know what they are truly stealing? The rishi asked. Money? Arjun guessed. No, they steal from themselves. Their peace, their honor, their contentment. Arjun saw a wealthy merchant anxiously counting his coins, fearful of being cheated. He realized that greed was not just about wealth, but also about stealing time, trust, and peace of mind. That evening, as he reflected on past battles fought for material gains, he resolved never to take what was not rightfully his. As they traveled, they arrived at a serene monastery nestled in the mountains. The monks there lived in quiet discipline, dedicating their lives to meditation and study. The rishi led Arjun to an open courtyard where a young monk was balancing a pot of water on his head while walking across a narrow wooden beam. Watch closely, the rishi said. The monk moved gracefully, his steps unwavering, his focus absolute. When he reached the other side, he placed the pot down without spilling a single drop. Now you try, the rishi instructed Arjun, handing him a pot filled to the brim. Arjun smirked, confident in his balance and strength. He stepped onto the beam, but as he walked, his mind drifted. He noticed the beauty of the distant peaks, the rustling of leaves, the whispers of the monks watching him. His thoughts wavered, and within moments the pot tilted. Water splashed onto the beam, making it slippery, and he struggled to regain control. Just before reaching the end, he stumbled, spilling the remaining water. The young monk smiled. Mastery is not just of the body, but of the mind. After days of travel, Arjun and the rishi arrived at a grand palace, unlike any Arjun had ever seen. Gold adorned the walls, the floors were covered in the softest silk carpets, and jeweled chandeliers cast a warm glow across the vast hallways. Yet, despite its magnificence, the air inside felt heavy, almost suffocating. In the royal chamber, an old king lay on an opulent bed, surrounded by chests overflowing with gold, gems, and silks. His trembling hands clutched a ruby-studded crown, his eyes filled with fear. Servants and ministers stood around him, whispering in hushed voices, their faces tense. What troubles him? Arjun asked. He is dying, the rishi replied, but he cannot bear to part with his wealth. The king's breathing was ragged. He called for his gold to be placed nearer, his trembling fingers running over the coins as if they could offer him comfort. I have ruled for decades, built the grandest palaces, gathered treasures from across the world. And yet, I must leave it all behind, he muttered in despair. A servant stepped forward. Your Majesty, the priests have arrived to perform the last rites. The king waved them away. Not yet, just a little longer. I must decide who will inherit which jewel, which coin, which land. His voice broke, his hands gripping his chest. Arjun watched in silence, an unsettling feeling growing inside him. He had seen warriors fall in battle, but never had he witnessed someone so tormented, not by wounds or war, but by his own attachments. The rishi turned to Arjun. Do you see his suffering? He has spent his life collecting wealth, believing it would give him power and security. But now, in his final moments, it is not his riches that bring him peace. It is they that imprison him. Arjun thought of his own life, his victories, his ambitions, his hunger for control. Had he, too, been clinging to things that in the end would only weigh him down? The king let out a final shuddering breath, his hand still clutching a handful of gold coins. One slipped from his grasp, rolling onto the floor with a hollow sound. That night, as Arjun lay beneath the open sky, he felt a strange lightness in his heart. He had always believed strength came from what he could hold, command, and conquer. But now, he saw the truth. Real power lay in letting go. As he closed his eyes, he whispered a vow to himself. I will not be owned by what I own. That afternoon, after leaving the grand palace behind, they found themselves walking through a dense forest. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and blooming flowers. The road had been long, and dust clung to Arjun's skin. Let's stop here, the rishi said, leading him to a quiet stream nestled between moss-covered rocks. Without a word, he stepped into the water, letting it cleanse the dirt from his feet. Arjun followed, feeling the cool water wash over him, refreshing his body. But before he could enjoy the moment fully, the rishi bent down and disturbed the riverbed, sending swirls of mud clouding the clear water. Purity is not just of the body, the rishi said, watching the water turn murky. A mind filled with anger, hatred, and greed is like this, unable to see clearly, unable to reflect the truth. Arjun watched as the water gradually cleared, the dirt settling at the bottom. How does one cleanse the mind? He asked. Just as the river does, the rishi replied, by letting the impurities settle, not stirring them with restlessness. Through patience, awareness, and self-discipline, the mind becomes clear again. Arjun thought of the many times he had allowed rage to cloud his judgment, of the envy he had felt toward his rivals, and the grudges he still held in his heart. He realized that, like the stream, his mind could only reflect truth when it was free of such disturbances. That night, as he sat in meditation, he focused on stillness, allowing his thoughts to settle. He vowed to cleanse his heart of negativity, knowing that only with a pure mind could he see the world and himself clearly. By evening, after cleansing themselves in the stream, Arjun and the rishi continued their journey through the countryside. The grand palace with its dying king felt like a distant memory now, yet its lesson still lingered in Arjun's mind. As they walked, the scenery changed. Towering trees gave way to open fields where golden crops swayed gently in the evening breeze. Soon they came across a modest hut where a farmer and his family were finishing their meal. Their clothes were simple, their belongings few, yet laughter filled the air. The children played barefoot in the dirt, their mother hummed a tune as she gathered plates, and the farmer sat on the ground, smiling with contentment as he gazed at the setting sun. Curious, Arjun approached him. You work all day under the harsh sun, your home is small, and your meal is simple. Yet, you seem happier than the wealthiest men I know. How is that possible? The farmer chuckled. Because I have all that I need. My fields give me food, my family gives me love, and my heart is at peace. What more could I want? Arjun frowned. But what if you could have more? More land, more gold, a bigger house? The farmer shook his head. A man who is never satisfied will always chase after more, never resting, never at peace. I have enough, and that is why I am happy. The rishi turned to Arjun. Desire is an endless pit. No matter how much you fill it, it remains empty. True wealth is not in having more, but in needing less. As they walked away, Arjun remained silent. Deep in thought. He had spent his life chasing victories, seeking greater power and recognition. But had he ever truly been content? For the first time, he felt the weight of endless ambition lifting, replaced by something lighter, something freeing. That night, under the open sky, he let out a deep breath, feeling the peace that came not from acquiring more, but from wanting less. The next day, as the sun rose higher in the sky, Arjun and the Rishi began their climb up a steep, rugged mountain. The path was narrow and treacherous, with sharp rocks and loose gravel beneath their feet. Every step required careful attention, and soon the heat from the sun added to the difficulty. Arjun's muscles began to ache, and his breath became shallow. He glanced up and saw how far they had yet to go, the summit barely visible in the distance. His determination began to waver. "Rishi, this path is too difficult," Arjun muttered, wiping the sweat from his brow. "I am exhausted. I don't know if I can continue." The Rishi, unaffected by the grueling climb, smiled and said, "The path of self-discipline is not an easy one, but strength is forged through hardship, not comfort." They paused for a moment, and the Rishi pointed to a small village far below them. "Do you see that child down there?" Arjun squinted, noticing a young boy carrying a heavy bundle of firewood on his back, climbing up the same mountain, seemingly unbothered by the weight or the steep incline. "And how does he carry such a load without tiring?" Arjun asked, astonished. The Rishi smiled. "This boy climbs this mountain every day, from dawn until dusk. He has no choice. His family depends on him, and he has learned to endure the pain, to build his strength through daily effort. What seems difficult to you is part of his routine." Arjun watched the boy continue his climb, his movement steady, his focus unbroken. The Rishi continued, "True power is not gained by avoiding discomfort. It is born from the ability to endure it, to push through pain and fatigue, knowing that each step makes you stronger." Arjun's body still ached, but now his mind was clearer. He understood. The boy's daily struggle had become part of him, shaping his resilience. Arjun had sought ease in his life, comfort, wealth, victory, but true strength came from embracing the challenge, from persevering when every part of you wanted to give up. With a new sense of purpose, Arjun continued his climb, one step at a time, feeling the fire of self-discipline begin to burn within him. After days of climbing and enduring the challenges of the journey, Arjun and the Rishi reached a tranquil hermitage nestled at the base of a mountain. The place was simple yet serene, with the scent of incense lingering in the air and the rustling of leaves creating a peaceful ambience. The Rishi led Arjun into a small room where ancient scrolls and scriptures were neatly stacked on shelves. "Here," the Rishi said, "is a treasure trove of wisdom. It is said that to know yourself is to know the universe." Arjun stood in awe, his eyes scanning the collection of texts. The Rishi handed him a weathered scripture and said, "This contains knowledge that has been passed down for generations. It is not the knowledge of the world outside, but of the world within you." Arjun opened the book and began to read, his eyes tracing the sacred words. The Rishi, seeing the confusion in his eyes, spoke again. "The greatest battles are fought within. The external world may bring you conflict, but the true test of strength lies in understanding yourself. When you know your fears, desires, and weaknesses, you gain the power to conquer them." As the days passed, Arjun delved deeper into the study of these sacred teachings, learning not just from the scriptures, but also from the silence around him. Through reflection and introspection, he began to uncover truths about himself that had been hidden for years, his fears, his motivations, and his insecurities. One evening, as the sun set behind the mountains, Arjun shared his thoughts with the Rishi. "I have learned that to truly conquer others, I must first conquer myself. Only by understanding my inner battles can I achieve peace. The Rishi nodded. Indeed, the more you study yourself, the more you understand your place in the vastness of life. Knowledge of the self is the key to wisdom, for it reveals the path to inner strength. After enduring many trials and lessons, Arjun had reached a point in his journey where he felt a deep sense of transformation. The lessons of truth, non-violence, self-discipline and self-study had shaped him into a wise and resilient individual. Now, standing at the peak of a majestic mountain, with the wind sweeping across his face, Arjun felt the weight of all that he had learned. At the summit, the Rishi turned to Arjun with a serene expression. You have learned much, but now comes the final lesson, he said. True strength lies not in conquering the world, but in surrendering to the divine will of the universe. Arjun, puzzled, asked, What do you mean, Rishi? I have always believed that strength comes from fighting, from controlling everything around me. The Rishi smiled gently and pointed to the vast horizon. See how the river flows, how the seasons change, and how the stars move across the sky without resistance. Life is not about forcing your will on the universe, but about aligning yourself with its flow. The Rishi then shared the story of a great river, which, though powerful, never fights against the terrain it flows through. It flows where the earth guides it, carving paths through mountains and valleys, but it never resists. The river surrenders to the landscape, knowing it is part of a greater plan. Arjun paused, contemplating the words. He realized that throughout his life, he had fought to control everything, to shape his destiny, to conquer his fears, to bend the world to his will. But now, as the Rishi's wisdom sank in, he understood that there was strength in trusting the divine flow, in accepting that some things were beyond his control. The Rishi then spoke again, his voice calm and profound. Control what you can, accept what you cannot, and surrender the rest to the divine. This is the essence of true strength. Arjun stood at the mountain's peak, feeling an overwhelming sense of peace wash over him. For the first time, he understood that the greatest strength lay not in fighting everything, but in trusting the greater plan of life. He closed his eyes, surrendering to the divine flow, knowing that true power came from embracing life with humility and acceptance. After many months of trials, self-reflection, and profound wisdom, Arjun finally returned to his kingdom. But the man who stood before his people was no longer the same prince who had once been consumed by fear and doubt. His eyes now held the calm of someone who had conquered not just external enemies, but the turmoil within himself. He no longer saw his role as a ruler through the lens of power and control, but through the wisdom of self-mastery and compassion. The Rishi's final words echoed within him, a constant reminder of his journey. A man who conquers others is powerful, but a man who conquers himself is truly invincible. Arjun's kingdom thrived, not merely through laws and victories on the battlefield, but through the wisdom of the lessons he had embraced. He ruled with humility, guided by the principles of truth, compassion, and resilience. His people flourished, not just materially, but in spirit. The legend of Arjun, the unshakable king, became a beacon of hope and inspiration for generations to come. His reign was a testament to the fact that true strength is not in dominance, but in mastering oneself. As Arjun's story echoed through the ages, it became a reminder to all who heard it. The real battle is not fought with swords, but within the mind and heart. If you found this story inspiring, share your thoughts with us in the comments. What lesson from Arjun's journey touched you the most? Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more stories that nourish the soul and ignite the spirit.